All right, hello. This is Alejandro Rojas, and apparently I'm streaming, so we got at least one person in the chat. Hello. All right, so I wanted to go live for a second to share some thoughts on Roswell. So you might have caught I was on the show Roswell Mysteries Decoded last night on the CW. The hosts of the show were the investigators, were Ryan Sprague and Jennifer Marshall. They did a great job. Some of the research on the show was from Frank Kimbler, who has these metal pieces that were examined. Ben Hansen was on hand to examine some photos. In fact, I'll show you one of those in a second. And let's see, there's Barbara Beck from the Roswell Daily Record. And I actually got to do some producing on this show. You see, I'm a consulting producer, so I got to, point them in the direction of some of the cool stuff that's out there. And one of the points that I really wanted to get across on the show was that Roswell was a cover-up. And I know that's a really bold statement, but I'm going to prove this with facts, and I'm going to show you that even the U.S. Air Force had demonstrated this in their own reports of this case. So I'm just going to be a few minutes because I really want to get this across, and I think there were some points that were left out in the show that I think will make this argument really strong, even though I think they did a great job covering things. So check out the show if you haven't seen it. Links are below. In fact, links to all of the references that I'm going to be going over are below in the show details there. So let's get to it, peeps. So let me show you my browser here, and let's start off with this. So Roswell, some of you may not be aware of some of the details, and what happened and why this is such an incredible case is that it was the Air Force who told everybody that they had captured a flying saucer. They sent this press release out. Here is the Roswell Daily Record front page that is pretty much iconic when it comes to this case. It says RAAF, that's the Roswell Army Airfield. One kind of piece of trivia that at this time, there was no Air Force. It was the Army Air Force. It was under the Army, and then it came out as a separate entity later in the year in 1947, actually. So this is a Roswell Army Airfield, actually, which is a base in the airport. If you fly into Roswell these days, you're going to land in an airport that used to be that base. But they said they captured a flying saucer on a ranch in the Roswell region. So this was the big deal that started everything. The Air Force said that they had captured something. So that's kind of a big deal, right? This is the only time in history the Air Force is releasing a press release that they captured something like this. This was actually before the term UFO was coined. That wasn't coined until 1952, by the way. But what happened is essentially at this ranch outside of Roswell, this rancher had found this material. He brought it into the sheriff, and the sheriff called the Roswell Army Airfield. They decided to send out Jesse Marcel, who was their intelligence officer, and also a CIC officer. This is kind of the precursor to the CIA, the CIC, and they had an officer, an intelligence officer on the base also. What's interesting about this base is that this was the 409th Bombardier Group was there. They were the only group trained to drop atomic bombs at the time. 1947, just after World War II. So this base was important and very unique. So let's move on here, because what happened was this material then, the General Ramey, who was in charge, General Roger Ramey, told them to fly this material out to Fort Worth, Texas, along with Jesse Marcel, who collected this material and saw it, the intelligence officer. This is the guy actually who came forward in the late 70s saying, hey, what we found in Roswell was not normal. It was not a weather balloon. It was not any of these other things the Air Force is talking about. That was mysterious, and I think it was extraterrestrial in nature. So they flew him to Fort Worth, and here they took some pictures. And I used the most credible sources available so you could see that this is all very credible stuff. So this is the University of Texas. They've actually posted these Roswell photos because these were taken in Fort Worth, and they have records, I guess, of the Fort Worth newspaper there. So these are the press photos that were taken when Marcel arrived on the base. They had this material laid out. Here's Roger Ramey. Here is Colonel DuBose, and we're going to talk about him in a second because he's very important. This right here, Colonel DuBose, Roger Ramey, with this material. But this is not the material that they found in Roswell. They took these pictures for the press saying, oh, look, here's a weather balloon. This is a material that Jesse Marcel brought to me. It's just a common weather balloon. But that is not what they found in Roswell. And I'm going to prove to you why that's the case. And this is the gist of the cover-up that we can confirm. So there's Colonel DuBose, and he's going to be very important in this whole thing when I go through this. I want to show you a couple of the other images there. Here is Jesse Marcel holding that material. He says that when he got into this room, he saw this material and that it was a weather balloon. And the general told him, we're telling people this is a weather balloon and this is the material you found in the desert. Jesse Marcel said, yes, sir. He followed orders. He said, I was a patriot, and you know, if my boss tells me that's what we're going to say, this is what we're going to say. He didn't question it. He had no reservations. He just said, that's what you want me to say, that's what we're going to say. This is a gentleman who came forth decades later to say, this is not what I found out in the desert. Another picture that is significant here is this is a picture that they posted from 1947, 5 days after the Roswell incident. This is from Fort Worth, the base that these photos were taken, and this is a weather balloon. So this is just a common weather balloon. You can tell that it's, you know, that's something anybody should be able to identify, certainly an intelligence officer for the Army Air Force. Well, here's how we can prove that this was all a conspiracy, and this material, I use that word lightly, this was a cover-up, and that this material was not what they found in the forest. And what am I going to do to prove that? I'm going to use the Air Force's own report on Roswell to demonstrate this. So you can find these reports on the Defense Technical Information Center. I've got links below so you can find these yourselves. But if you go look, you can find there were 2 reports that were made. The first one came out in 1995. The second one came out in 1997, I believe, just a couple of years later. The second one, we won't go over. I touch upon this in the Roswell Mysteries Decoded show, so you'll have to watch that to get more about it. But that's not as significant as what we can find in this report to prove the cover-up. If we go down, let's see, I'm going to go, it's page 27 actually in this report, so you'll notice I pushed 29. This is a section where they talk about what was found in the desert. Balloon research, they call it. They had determined, okay, what was found probably wasn't a regular balloon. And in fact, even right here it says what they saw in General Ramey's office was the remains of a balloon and a ray wind target. Common. But what they had discovered is that there was a top-secret operation going on in the area. In fact, they called it a very sensitive project. And one of the people running this project was Charles Moore. And let's see, this project's name was Project Mogul. And essentially what this project was is they put up these balloons. Here you can see it was a sensitive classified project. But they would put up these balloons, and they had this listening equipment attached to it where they were able to detect seismic waves, and they used this in order to tell when the Soviet Union was testing nuclear devices, atomic bombs. So, and it worked. So that's what they did with this Project Mogul. So this was a secret project going on at the time. If you read some more about what Moore, he was a project engineer at the time, has to say, he said it was called sensitive, but it wasn't that sensitive. There was information that was out there. So it wasn't really that big of a secret. But Moore says this on page 27. He says, he agreed. He said, well, from what you're telling me, it could be that they did find a Project Mogul crashed, one of our balloons in our stuff, and that's what they mistaken for a flying saucer. So he agreed that could be the case, and that was essentially the conclusion of this report, that Marcel had made a big mistake, and that they sent out a press release saying they caught a flying disc when actually all they saw was this Mogul balloon. But here's what the report says. This is really important, I think. Concerning the initial announcement, RAAF captures flying disc, research failed to locate any documented evidence as to why that statement was made. However, on July 10, 1947, following the Ramey press conference, the Alamogordo News published an article with photographs demonstrating multiple balloons and targets at the same location as the NY group U group operated from at Alamogordo Army Airfield, meaning the Project Mogul was nearby at Alamogordo. Professor Moore expressed surprise at seeing this, since his was the only balloon test group in the area. He stated, "It appears that there was some type of umbrella cover story to protect our work in Mogul." Although the Air Force did not find documented evidence that General Ramey was directed to espouse a weather balloon in his press conference, he may have done so because he was either aware of Project Mogul and was trying to deflect interest from it, or he readily perceived the material to be a weather balloon based on the identification from his weather officer, Irving Newton. In either case, the materials recovered by the AAF in July 1947 were not readily recognizable as anything special. So, essentially, what this is doing is confirming that, as you can see, there was a cover-up. He says right here, it appears that there was some type of umbrella cover story to protect our work with Mogul. That's how they explained why Ramey showed them a common weather balloon as opposed to the material that was really found in the desert, and are claiming, but you can see they're speculating that what was really found was this Project Mogul balloon. So that's the cover-up. There was a cover-up. To confirm that even further, you'll remember in the photos that I showed you just a second ago, here was Colonel Du Bois, who worked for General Ramey and who was there. He confirmed this to researchers. He's been interviewed by a few UFO researchers. This is the website of Kevin Randall, who is one of my favorite Roswell researchers. He's very grounded. But this is from the affidavit that Colonel Du Bois, who later became a brigadier general, had written to researchers. He said, "The material shown in the photographs taken in General Ramey's office was a weather balloon." Ramey crouched with Du Bois seated and the weather balloon. There's the picture, another version of that picture we just looked at. The weather balloon explanation for the material was a cover story to divert the attention of the press. So again, we have another confirmation from a man who was there that this was a cover story. In fact, there is a video of Du Bois on the internet where he discusses this as well. Now, granted, none of what I just told you confirms there was an alien spacecraft that crashed out there, nor does it confirm, however, that it was Project Mogul, which the Air Force assumes that it was what Jesse Marcel found out there. So, and as you saw in the report, they don't know what prompted the Roswell Army Airfield to write a press release that said they captured a flying disc. So there's a lot of mystery when it comes to Roswell, but there certainly was a cover-up. And in Roswell Mysteries Decoded, we use that word cover-up quite a bit. And to me, what I just reviewed with you, justifies why we call it that. It was a cover-up. We don't know what they were covering up exactly. We certainly cannot say for sure it was a cover-up of an alien spacecraft, but there was some cover-up of some sort. the mystery continues. So check out the links below for more information about what I'm talking about and to watch Roswell Mysteries Decoded. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to join me for future videos on this channel, The Alejandro Advantage, and on Open Minds TV, where I do more UFO stuff. Thank you very much.